Welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast with your host, Lorna Poole, sharing the secrets to creating wealth, investing, and that all-important money mindset. To find out more and accelerate your journey to financial freedom, head on over to www.lornapoole.com to get started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Are you a business looking to fund right now? Well, my guest expert, Tiffany C. Wright, helps small to medium business-to-business companies reconstruct their operations and finances to generate a higher revenue, stronger cash flow, and greater profit. Tiffany is the author of The Funding is Out There. Access the cash you need to impact your business. Whether you've got $300,000 in a transport business, $20 million in a service business, or you're a budding entrepreneur, Tiffany has the information and strategies to do it. So Tiffany, I'm looking to fund my business, especially in current climate. You know, what do I need to be thinking about?
Well, Lorna, the first thing you need to think about is your business still viable? Because what you don't want to do is throw money at a problem that cannot be resolved because the underlying fundamentals have changed. So basically, if you, for instance, are a restaurant and you've lost a lot of your, you basically are living on, dregs. You had to shut down. You didn't get many drive-by or pickup customers during the shutdown period. Then and you have a mountain of debt, and your regular operations don't generate enough money to cover what you've lost, let alone continue your operations. Then it might be better to actually shut down and start anew and just get rid of that debt. But if you are operating from a position of you'll be able to get back up and get going again and do well, then you need to take a look at how much money you need now, how much money you need to have covered, you need to cover that you may have lost over the previous few months, but also think about what you need to restart, reposition, and what you'll need over the next year. So you'll need short-term funds, and you may need medium-term or even long-term funds.
Okay, you've mentioned a lot there. And so let's go back. Right. So for the first place to start, right, is, okay, just because your current circumstances doesn't mean you need a loan. You need to sit back, take a look, and see where your business is at and whether it's actually viable business that it's worth going forward with.
Yes, that's really important because. So
what am I looking at? What am I looking at in my business then to know the answer to that?
You're looking at your financials. You have to look at your numbers. Sometimes you hear when people talk about personal wealth and so on, they say, look at your numbers. Well, the same thing applies to a business. Look at your numbers. How much money did you bring in each year over the last 2 to 3 years? How much money did you bring in this year? How much money did you make? So how much you brought in revenue, but then how much was your profit each year? And if your profit was minimal, let's say, for instance, you brought in $100,000 a year and you only made $3,000. Then the likelihood, and then this year you've already lost $20,000, then the likelihood of you being able to recover is very, very low. So it'd be better to start anew. However, if you brought in, let's say, $20,000 a year over the previous 3 years, and this year you've only lost $10,000, then you can recover, and you just need the funds to be able to cover the $10,000 that you lost and reposition yourself or get back up and tide you over till you can get back to generating the revenue that got you to the $20,000 a month. I mean, the $20,000 a year in profit. Do you see what I mean? Did you
Yeah,
understand
so
that?
it's not the amount of money, it's looking at your revenue and looking at what profit is
Yes.
the difference.
Yes. And then the other thing would be cash flow, because there's
Yeah.
some kinds of businesses, like for instance, construction, where you have to pay out a lot of money up front and then recoup the money on the back end. And so that could really, even though you might be profitable, if you don't have the cash to tide you over for 8 weeks, you're going to be in significant trouble. So you can go out and get funding or try to get funding to cover that gap, or you can also look at restructuring the way that you get your customers to pay, or even looking at getting different kinds of customers. For instance, if you have commercial customers that pay you in 45 days, maybe you can get some more residential customers who typically pay you up front or before you do any work.
And
So
that's
these
where
are
you
the
brought
kinds of
up,
things. Go ahead.
and that's where you brought up the second point, which was restarting and repositioning. So that would be sort of a repositioning. So first of all, we are looking at our cash flow bottom line anyway, and we're looking at the difference between our revenue and our profit, because if we don't have the cash flow coming in regularly, or we've lost a lot of it, or we don't have enough to cover what we've been through, that weighs into whether you should look into funding or not. Is that right?
That is correct. That is correct. Because go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, because any funding entity that I would talk about will, they're going to look at your assets, your past profitability, except for the emergency funding. The emergency funding isn't going into all of that detail. But for funding as an ongoing enterprise, they're going to take a look at all of that. So you need to understand all of that and be able to talk about it with whomever you approach for funding. Yeah,
so it's knowing your business and knowing where it's at and having your balance sheet and your I can't even think of it. You need to know where you're at and what's going on in your business to even pitch it to get the funding, right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay. And as you say, so the current climate is a prime example. What worked for you before might not work now. So when you're restarting, you might have to reposition. So what does that look like, Tiffany?
It depends. It depends on the company, but you need to look at what are your customers doing? And if you're not sure, ask. I have to tell, small business owners, just talk to your customers. If you are a retail store and you probably know some of the people that come into your store, then you can actually talk to them. If you are an online entity, then you can do a survey. If you are a construction company, you can, call up your customers and ask them. But if you're not sure what you need to do, then talk to your customers and see what their needs are, because that's why you're in business, is to meet the needs of your customer. So maybe let's say for an example, if you're a construction company and you had to, and you do interior construction, there's probably you may actually be okay, because there's a lot of people who do have money to work on their homes and so on, but you may need to change who you go after. Maybe you need to go up market a bit, or maybe you need to, instead of focus on doing bathrooms and kitchens, you might need to do other work. And that's what I mean by repositioning. I'm not necessarily saying that you have to make a drastic move from, say, being totally offline to being totally online, but you need to look at where the needs are. So people may not need the same kinds of things that they needed before, at least in the short term. And so what can you do to fill those needs going forward? For instance, there was a company that I'm aware of. Anyways, they provided food to restaurants, and obviously that went away. But Costco was reaching out because they were just bombarded by bombarded by people trying to stock up on groceries. And so that company managed to get a contract with Costco. So basically, all their other business disappeared.
Making a shift in your business to keep the money coming in the door.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And what about this short, medium, and long-term thing? So, I'm right. So let's talk about this. Where am I going to get the funding? Why do I need to think about short, medium, and long-term? And what does that look like?
Okay, short-term is you're cash constrained because you've been shut down, or your revenues have, or even if you were operating, maybe your revenues have just taken a beating. And so your costs, you have some fixed expenses and you need to cover that. So the short term is, I need to cover the expenses that I incurred previously, especially if that depleted my savings. So how can I rebuild my cash so that I can continue operating? And then what do I need? How long do I think it will take me to get back up to full capacity in terms of my typical revenue? And how much will I need during that period of time? And then look at what's out there. In the United States, we have the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. We also have the emergency, the EIDL, the emergency, I forget what the I is, disaster loan. And actually both are still available. The EIDL reopened, and that has a 3.5% interest rate, and it's payable over 30 years. So if you need funding that tied to ongoing operations, which would be called working capital, those are two very good sources to tap right now. The interest rates are much lower than anything you would get anywhere else, and the PPP, if it's used for certain things, it's fully forgivable. Just make sure you track everything. Now, outside of that, I would say if you have a good relationship with your banker, talk to them about increasing or increasing your line of credit for short term. Just make sure you have your financials and so on available for that. If you have accounts receivables or inventory that's current or something like that, then you can get loans against those assets. If you are looking to, if you're trying to bring on new customers and so on, you can co-market with people. If you need to do some marketing but you don't have the money, you can align with an entity and co-market with them, and they may have a larger entity or a more financially viable entity may be able to, on the front end, pick up some of that marketing cost and maybe take something out of the revenue share or something on the back end. It depends on how complementary your services are, because I've even had it where the other company completely picked up the full tab for all the marketing that's involved. It depends on what you're looking for, but those are some of the best sources for short-term financing. There's peer-to-peer lending. There's all these. There's just a whole wealth of places that you could reach out to. There's there's micro loans through different organizations. And
what about medium and long term then?
Okay, so medium and long term, those are that's where you so if you're looking at loans, then the financing would come from banks, asset lenders, strategic partners.
Are we looking at loans, or are we looking at other ways to do this?
There are other, well, that's why I said strategic partners, because let me just give you an example. I had a client that needed that got a $8 million contract with the government, and they were previously at $3 million. So $8 million, that now they are jumping up to 11 million, and they couldn't handle it. So we found a partner for them, and that partner was a $55 million company that was also trying to get into that government agency. And so we did a combination of things. One, we talked to the bank and and got them to increase the line of credit, but banks go by historicals. So if you're trying to jump up that much, they won't, they're not going to do the whole thing. They need to do it over time. So we got them an increased line of credit. I found an asset lender who lent against the receivables, and then we got the other company to be a strategic partner, and they actually use their own line of credit to fund a part of the money that my client needed. So sometimes you have to look at to get the money you need, depending on how much you need. You may need to get it from different sources. Another good thing for longer term being over a year, or midterm to long term, is suppliers. People often think of suppliers as just 30 days, you get 30-day terms, which is fantastic. But if you have a really good relationship with a supplier, you can sometimes negotiate a loan for a year or 2 years. And people don't often think about that. They think that it's not possible, but lots of things are possible.
Yeah, it's sort of about thinking outside the box and seeing what options are out there and seeing what's possible. Because sometimes as business owners, we don't, as you say, we don't really believe, we only know this one method, and we don't think about, well, I could partner with somebody. Using your supplier, I would have never thought of that. It's amazing where you can find the funding that people wouldn't necessarily think as a go-to.
Yes. And so that's why I always tell people, well, after, looking at the viability of your business, think about what you need the money for. Why do you need it? Do you need it to hire people? Do you need it to do marketing? Do you need it to bring on a salesperson? Do you need it to buy supplies? What do you need it for? Do you need it for rent? Because I've had clients who they needed to move into a bigger space, but they didn't have the funds, so they sublet a space, or they of another company that.
So you're creating income generating then, right?
Yes, and in that case, yes, that's right.
That's probably a better way to do it if you can.
Yes, if you have extra space, and and because you've had to downsize, like right now, then there's still entities out there, there's still companies out there that want to get out of the office and they're looking for space. Or there's other companies who also may have downsized, but they don't, and now they're trying to figure out what to do. So yes, sharing a space and you get additional income. Just think about what it is you need, and then you can think about what actually will meet that need. So it's not just the money, because you could say I need a loan or I need an investor, but it's also what do I need it for? And that opens up the universe of possibilities.
So some of the ways are an investor, your supplier, partner with companies, go straight to the bank, the traditional ways. So there's many ways to fund yourself. Tiffany, we've had an amazing conversation. So for anyone listening to this, their business is meeting the right criteria. They're looking for help. What would you say to them?
I would say if you're looking for financing, and you're looking for different ways to finance your company, then my book, The Funding is Out There, Access the Cash You Need to Impact Your Business, I think is wonderful. It's really the same way that I talk is the way that it's written. And I just give all kinds of examples and case studies of these are actually what I did to help people get funding. And I explain what all of these are and how to present yourself, because different types of funding require different kinds of packaging, as I call it. Just the way you approach them and how you put your stuff together when you approach them. And then go ahead.
I was just going to say, and how do we find out more about you?
Oh, my website, The Resourceful CEO, salesgrowth.com. And there you can also download my free ebook, which will show you how to get 10K in less than 45 minutes. to find 10K in your business.
Love it. Tiffany, thank you for being here and thank you for sharing this. It's been an amazing conversation and has made me think more about all the options that are out there.
Thank you, Lorna. Thank you very much for having me.
Hey everyone, remember to join us in the Private Financial Freedom Podcast Facebook group with me, your host, Lorna Poole. This is a safe haven of like-minded wealth-getting go-getters who, like you, are on their journey to creating financial freedom in their life. This is where you and I can get intimate. I can give you the support and guidance to go from where you are now to where you want to be, developing your wealth mindset and creating your financial freedom life. Join at www.facebook.com/groups The Financial Freedom Podcast. You will see the links to this on the website. It's in the show notes, or type it into the Facebook group. All you have to type in is Financial Freedom Podcast and you will see us there. Look forward to seeing you in the group. Take care. Thank you for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast to creating wealth, investing, and developing your money mindset. To get started today on your journey, head on over to www.lornapoole.com and grab your free course, 5 Steps to Breaking Free from Your Poverty Mindset and Accelerating Your Journey to Financial Freedom. See you there.